All right, everybody. So let's talk about taxes. I know. Not exactly the most fun thing in the world. But stick with me on this one because we're going to be talking about a Georgia tax credit,
Mhm.
especially for all you business owners out there. Could really put some serious money back into your pocket, especially if you're looking to grow your business. So just imagine this. You're a Georgia business owner, things are going great, you're hiring new employees, and suddenly, bam, the state just decides to go and change the rules of the game. And now your whole tax situation is completely different.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good way to describe what's been happening with the Georgia job tax credit. And there's this thing called the notice of intent. A lot of businesses have been overlooking it.
The notice of intent. So what is that and why is it such a big deal?
You can think of it as a way to keep qualifying for the tax credit, even when the rules change. Businesses that don't file it, they could be losing out on thousands of dollars or even tens of thousands of dollars.
Really? Just
Yep.
missing one form can cost you that much. All right, I'm definitely interested. Let's break all this down. So first, what exactly is the Georgia Job Tax Credit?
Well, it's a program from the state to encourage job growth in Georgia, just like the name says. So, for example, there was this company, ABC Manufacturing, in one of our sources. They added 8 new jobs that qualify for the credit. So, basically, for each of those new hires, they get a tax credit from the state, and that lowers their state income tax bill.
Gotcha. So it's not just some random tax break. It's really all about creating jobs and helping real people.
hmm
But I'm guessing it can't be that simple. It's not just as easy as hiring someone new and then getting a check from the state, is it?
No, you're right about that. So, Georgia ranks its counties based on how economically developed they are. So, there are the Tier 1 counties, which are usually the less developed ones, and then you go all the way up to Tier 4, which are the most developed ones. Then there are also some special designations like the opportunity zones and the military zones. And all of these different rankings, they have an impact on a few things. Whether your business qualifies for the credit, how much the credit's actually worth for each job, and how you can even use the credit to reduce your tax liability.
Okay, so where my business is located, that can actually determine if I get a bigger or smaller tax credit. That's really interesting. What's the logic behind these different tiers?
So the goal is to help areas that need it most. So businesses in less developed tiers, they get bigger tax credits from the state. This way they're encouraged to invest and create jobs where it'll make the biggest difference.
That makes a lot of sense. It helps level the playing field, and it encourages growth all across the state.
Hmm.
But so back to the notice of intent, you were saying that businesses need to be really careful because the rules recently changed, right?
Yeah, in 2025, they made some big changes to those county classifications. 11 counties got bumped up to different tiers, 60 census tracts, and 4 military zones. So now some businesses could be at a real disadvantage.
So you're saying there are businesses out there right now that might not even know they need to do something.
Yeah, and that's what's so scary. That's where that notice of intent is so important. It basically protects businesses and lets them keep their old ranking, even if the area's designation has changed.
Wait, so even if my county gets bumped up to a higher tier, which means a less valuable credit, I can still keep the old rate just by filing this notice of intent.
Yeah, that's exactly how powerful the NOI is. It gives businesses a chance to adapt to those new classifications without immediately losing out on those savings.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. But there's got to be a deadline for this, right? Like a time limit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. March 31st of the year after the rankings change. That's the deadline.
March 31st. Okay, got
Okay.
it. So what if a business misses that deadline? How much money could they actually be losing?
Let's go back to ABC Manufacturing. They added those 8 new jobs, remember? Let's just say back in 2024 they were a Tier 1 county. But then in 2025 they got moved up to Tier 2. If they don't file that notice of intent, they might not even meet the new requirements for Tier 2, for job creation, that is. So they could lose the tax credit completely.
Ouch. Can you put an actual dollar amount on that mistake?
So in 2024, when they were Tier 1, that credit was worth $3,500 for each job. So with 8 jobs, that's $28,000 in savings, just for 2025. But here's the thing, you can claim that credit for 5 years. So we're not just talking about $28,000, they could lose $140,000 over those 5 years if they miss that deadline.
Wow, that's a huge loss. So there's no way to fix that. If you miss the March 31st deadline,
Nope. The state is really strict about the rules. I mean, they're giving businesses a chance to keep their old ranking, but they have to act quickly. It makes you think, though, wouldn't most businesses have their CPA handle this?
yeah, you would think. Don't CPAs usually take care of all the complicated tax stuff?
Well, yeah, usually. But this notice of intent, it's a very specific thing. Even experienced CPAs, they deal with so many tax regulations. It can be easy to miss. It happens more than you think.
So even tax professionals might not know about this. That's kind of scary. If they don't know, how's regular business owners supposed to stay on top of everything?
You're exactly right. That's why it's so important to your research and find some real experts. When it comes to these special tax incentives, you don't want to miss out on saving money just because you thought someone else was taking care of it.
Okay, so let's say I'm a business owner in Georgia,
Hmm.
and I think I might be eligible for this job tax credit. What should I do? Should I try to figure out the tax code myself?
Yeah. The best thing to do is to talk to a company that specializes in this kind of stuff. That's where a company like MPowered Incentives Group can help. They have a whole team that's focused on these tax credits. They can look at where your business is located, see if it's in one of those affected tiers or zones, and figure out if you need to file a notice of intent.
So they do all the research and figure out if it's even worth my time. What happens after that?
Well, the best part is their first consultation is completely free, and you don't have to hire them. So you basically get a clear idea of your situation and how much you could save without having to pay anything up front.
That sounds like a great deal to me. No risk, but a lot of potential rewards. It seems like a lot of businesses could benefit from at least talking to them.
Definitely. It's crazy how many businesses lose money
Yeah.
simply because they don't know about these incentives.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
with how the economy is these days. Every dollar counts.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we've learned today about the Georgia Job Tax Credit and the Notice of Intent. So first we have the Georgia Job Tax Credit itself. It's a great program for businesses in the state that are creating new jobs.
Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody, both businesses and the state's economy.
Then we have those tier rankings and the special designations. And we learned that those can really change how much you can benefit from the credit. So your location matters.
Location is a key factor, and that's why those recent changes are so important. Businesses need to know how those changes might affect them.
And that brings us to the most important part, the Notice of Intent. This form is super important for businesses that want to keep their old ranking, even if their county or zone has changed.
Is how you stay eligible and get the most out of those tax savings.
But there's one thing you got to remember, the March 31st deadline.
Exactly. If you miss that, you could be losing out on a ton of money. We're talking thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars in tax credits.
Like ABC Manufacturing. The difference between filing and not filing the NOI was $140,000 over 5 years.
A very expensive mistake.
And to make things even more complicated, we learned that your CPA might not even know about this form.
Which just shows how important it is to get advice from experts that focus specifically on these credits, like MPowered Incentives Group. They can walk you through the whole process and help make sure you don't miss out on any savings.
It just goes to show you that you really can't afford to ignore these tax incentives. You got to do your research, especially when it comes to saving money.
Yeah, and sometimes those confusing things can actually end up saving you the most money.
Exactly. That's a great point to wrap things up on. So for all of you listening out there, what could you do with an extra $140,000 for your business? Is it worth your time to take a closer look at this Notice of Intent? That's something for you to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it to check it out, even if you're not sure if you qualify. Just talking to MPowered Incentives Group for free can really give you some peace of mind. At least you'll know what your options are.
Exactly. And you never know. You might find out that you're eligible for a big tax break. Sometimes the best things come from looking into details, even if they seem boring at first. Thanks for joining us today as we took a deep dive into the Georgia Job Tax Credit and the Notice of Intent. Hopefully you learned something new and maybe even found a way to save some of your hard-earned money. See you next time.